Here again, when those who are fortunate enough to receive a 13th cheque have extra cash in their pockets, the marketers use this time to lure consumers to splash their hard-earned cash. And it's usually tempting to blow your bonus on the things that money can buy.
One of the first things I would suggest that people should do now is that they must take a portion of that money and actually save it. That age-old principle of in the good times, save for the bad times, because indeed the bad times we know they will come. The second most important thing that people should do is, because this is a period where they've got the most amount of money, they should actually be reducing their debts and not increasing them.
Those with school-going children need to make provision for school fees. The cost of education usually increases at a much higher rate than the inflation rate. Consumers are also cautioned to create an emergency fund consisting of at least 6 months of their salary. This money will help them deal with major unexpected expenses.
If an emergency, God forbid, does happen, how do you get out of it? Where are you going to get the money from? So an emergency fund is always a very good idea to have. The difficulty in an emergency fund is, again, comes back to the instant gratification to say, well, I'll worry about that later, but you never know when an emergency is going to happen.
Analysts say this is the best time to consider paying off short-term debt, such as money owed on credit cards and store cards. Unsecured debt attracts higher interest rates.
Short-term debt is extremely expensive. So yes, if you can pay it off, it would be a very good idea to pay off short-term debt. However, you need to make sure that you're not going to get back into short-term debt. First, answer for yourself, how did I get into the short-term debt? What caused me to get here? And once we've paid it off, make sure it doesn't happen again.
Those who have a retirement annuity are urged to contribute a portion of their windfall to it. You can claim back some of that money from the taxman.
You're allowed to go all the way up to 15% of the value of your bonus can go into a retirement annuity, and then what happens is when you do your tax return in the next year, you can put that retirement annuity contribution as part of what you've put into your retirement annuity, and then SARS will reduce your taxable income by the amount that you've put in there. So what you're actually doing is that you're doing two great things. One, you're saving for a future, you're saving for a moment in time when you're not going to have income. Nobody's going to want to employ you, otherwise called as retirement. But what you're also doing is that you're reducing the amount of tax that you pay over to SARS.
Putting some of the bonus money towards a home loan is one way of creating financial wealth. For example, paying an extra 4,000 rand on a bond of 150,000 rand will help reduce the interest cost by 220,000 over the term of the bond.
If you have an excess bond, you can put the extra money into your bond for that period, because if you then continue to repay the bond at that level, you will benefit by having the extra capital in the bond and then still repaying at the level that you were repaying. And when you do need that money, you can access that money.
Consumers have been cautioned not to use their 13th cheque to pay for a holiday. Holiday packages are usually expensive at this time of the year.
If you haven't been able to save throughout the year for that holiday and plan for it as part of your planning, and you have other obligations and you have debt, by going on holiday you're just making the problem bigger, and you might enjoy it while you're there, but generally when you come back you have to face the reality again.
Avoiding the temptation to buy things that they do not need and planning for shopping in advance will help consumers to avoid instant gratification. This will prevent financial distress in the new year. Naledi Mulifi, SABC News, Johannesburg.